Alex here with a video on the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial Publicity. That's right, just going to talk about the trial Publicity. The only real detailed analysis and coverage that I've watched of the trial is from this channel called the Behavior Panel. Really trust those guys, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to watch the whole thing, and so I got a really good synopsis from them, and they're 4 experts on body language, and they go through their body language analysis and all of that. So it really helps when it comes down to, in my opinion, when it comes down to sorting out who the liar is. Which is one of the things that I really wanted to get into. And without being able to watch the entire thing, the Behavior Panel is like the second best thing to do. So this video is, the idea to go into this video came when I saw this article from Variety with the headline, "Why was Depp Heard Trial Televised? Critics Call It Single Worst Decision for Sexual Violence Victims." When I saw that, I knew I had to do a video. I've done a few takes of this video and they've gone too long and I've gone on too many tangents, so I'm not going to spend as much time on it because I think that is just confusing. I don't want to confuse you guys as to what my thoughts are and such. I think that this notion that there are certain types of cases that are, I guess, sacred cows, that you just can't touch them, they're special, that everything has to be super secret, I think that that type of thinking is what has caused the same exact problems that these movements have had for several years now. And I guess there's a bunch of these different movements. I guess the Me Too is kind of at the top of the list right now. That one specifically has to do with victims getting the courage to step forward. And there are also there's also a gender war right now with moms, dads, males on one side. Moms, wives, females on one side, and dads, husbands, males on the other. And I guess, you know, there's the One Mom's Battle and various other groups that kind of embody that. And then there's the father's rights movements and various other groups, you know, along that same vein on the other side. They don't see eye to eye. They don't agree with each other at all. In many ways, they, you know, just blatantly disrespect each other. And these problems have not been solved by convictions. There have been many witnesses that have been, you know, victims that have come forward with, you know, the gymnastics, I was going to say gymnasium, the gymnastics scandal. I think that was the Larry Nassar case. There has been charges and prosecutions of various other rich people, business people, politicians, because victims came forward and spoke. And its situation hasn't gotten better. People are more aware of the existence of the movement, but doesn't necessarily mean that the people who believe there are liars have decided, okay, there aren't any, or there are hardly any. That's still there. And what I'm trying to say is that reading an article or seeing some summary conclusion by a reporter on TV, it's not changing that. It's not helping the situation. The resistance to the idea is just getting worse. And a lot of that is fueled by family court, because half the country goes through it. And there's tons of social media groups popping up around the family court system. And you can see that there are just huge swaths of these groups who have gone through personal experiences and they feel that they've been lied about. And I think that those personal experiences are going to be there and will not change just because the news media says that you just need to stop. They're just going to scold you or lecture you or chastise you and tell you knock it off and start believing the victim. And the only real way to have a discussion nowadays with all this distrust and disrespect and misinformation is to actually let the people see and hear for themselves. And that's the only way that you're going to actually change minds. And I have noticed that with this specific trial, I mean, my own friends on social media are watching the trial. And I have seen a lot of my friends that were Team Amber switch to Team Johnny. And that's because they saw it with their own eyes and heard with their own ears. And I understand that maybe that's kind of what this article is upset about, is that with this specific case and this specific outcome, that their movement has been significantly damaged, and that they're afraid that victims will be no longer wanting to speak out because their case might be publicized. And there's just nothing you can do about it. That's just the nature of this specific case. It was publicized in a courtroom. You have the neutral judge, you have neutral jurors who aren't even part of the legal system, you have professional attorneys who are presenting the arguments, and then you have rules of evidence that are controlling what's allowed to be considered. That's a pretty thorough way of having a public debate. You put a camera on it, hundreds of millions of people watch. You block the camera, and the only people who can watch are the ones who can fit in that room. And that's just, it's not at all anywhere close to the same thing. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you can put an article out, but the resistance that the movements are getting isn't going to change, and it may even get worse. It may even spark conspiracy theories and more suspicions. So, of course, this was not the single worst decision. It was the single best decision for society and the public at large, maybe not for victims. And how do victims deal with that problem going forward? That's really the opportunity that has presented itself, is that maybe those groups are not doing enough by scolding, chastising, and lecturing the people who do not agree with them. Maybe what they're going to have to start doing is they themselves sorting out the liars and denouncing the liars for being the reason as to why other victims won't speak out. I mean, when people get these experiences which lead to opinions that there are liars sometimes, they're not going to change their mind just because you try and tell them to, because they have personal experiences. They've gone through it, and they have emotional connections to those memories. So really, I hope that they take it as an opportunity to see that the people who are undermining, violence victims from stepping forward are not the big bad media cameras. The people who are undermining violence victims from stepping forward are the liars. That's the truth of it. It's the liars. And if you don't figure out how to deal with that problem, these movements are going to keep getting infiltrated by more and more liars. As these topics get popular, as these approaches become more effective in courtrooms, more attorneys and more litigants are going to want to use these as mechanisms to win their cases. And if they have to lie to do that, some of them will. In any event, I think people might have a lot of opinions on this topic. If you do have an opinion, feel free to post it down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.